Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. This will be episode number 4 of putting together the Passagemaker Take Apart Dingy from CLC boats. So yesterday we left off with me struggling to figure out how I was going to do some of these smaller parts with my router, and as you can see here, we've got a okay. So this is not even remotely something that you should even consider doing. So, um, uh, yeah. So I mounted the router underneath this plywood, and I've got another piece up here. So should give me a little bit better control, especially on these smaller parts. I'm not sure how it's going to work on the bigger parts that I have to do, but we should have a little bit better control over doing what we need to. And I've got the book right here on what we need to do. So I've only got a few of these. I've already done the small parts here. These whatever these are, the knees, the stern, and the bow knee. I've already got them. Rounded over. I did have a little bit of problem with the first ones I did here of burn from burning the router. So turned the router speed way down, as low as it'll go, and also I need to make sure that I go at a nice steady rate. If I go too slow, then we've got a bigger chance of burning the wood. I think these edges are still gonna require a little bit more sanding, just hand sanding, regardless of what we do, because we're against the grain in a couple spots, and it'll probably just make it. It just makes it looks better if you just hit it with some sandpaper afterwards. All right, so good. So let me get my ears on here, and then we'll just go ahead and do this. I'll show you doing this. What is this called? A motor pad. So on this one here, I'm trying to figure out which side is best to have exposed, and it's only on one side. On this one, you won't be able to see it, but there's uh, this side over here. On this side is a little bit. You can tell it's a little bit rougher. On this side, I think we've got a much better surface overall, a little bit more consistent. So I'm going to do this side here and do the round over on it. So let me get that going, and then we'll see where we're at. All right, so that came out pretty good. I had one spot here. Uh, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it, and so I'm just letting it glide on the bearing, and then if I have to go back around, I'm putting just a little bit more pressure on it. So I think that's pretty good. I'll have to hit this side over here is a little bit rough, so I'll hit that with some sandpaper, and then this burn spot. I'm thinking about going back over it. So let's see, it'd be like this vertically. See how that looks. So yep. So that's the plan of attack. So I've got the small parts to do here. I've only got a couple more to do, the small parts, and then hopefully we'll have we'll be able to use the same setup for the bigger parts, and I'll get a little bit better. Also, I did that last puzzle piece this morning. First thing I got out here, I mixed up just the smallest amount of thickened epoxy and flipped that one part over. What's that? I think that's the bow seat. Yeah, so the bow seat. So I flipped that over, had a couple voids on the other side that I went ahead and filled in. So hopefully, because that's one of the other parts that we need to route out. So hopefully that'll be ready tomorrow. so I can work through these parts here, and then tomorrow we can go ahead and get get that routed out and keep on moving. So I'll pause here. We'll get we'll get these parts rounded over and sanded up, and be back. All right, then it's another day out here in the old guy's shed, and been a little busy this morning. So this is the bottom piece here, and I've got it all pretty much cleaned up for that joint. Looks pretty good, all set up. I need to do the round over on both sides of this. So now I've got it clamped down, and I've got my router back to normal mode. This piece was just too big to try to move around on the router table setup. So since we can clamp this down here, I should be able to get a nice clean run at both sides. Also, I went ahead and put down plastic and got the parts all kind of laid out here a little bit. So the next step is to put epoxy on, just regular epoxy on the bottom of the seats. So I've got the back seat here. This is the middle seat where the dagger board goes, and then this is the front seat. So the back side of all three of these need to be given 2 coats of regular epoxy to seal them up before we get too much farther along. Then the other thing I've got is these doublers need to be glued together, and this is for this is the bow transom, they call it, and then this is the stern transom. So they need both gluing up. So not sure I'm not sure how far we'll get today, but I know I can at least get we'll get this rounded over, get this front seat here cleaned up, and then we'll go from there. See what the temperature is. So they want you to put 2 coats on, and they want you to wait 6 to 8 hours, I think they said, between coats on the bottoms of the seats. So they want 2 coats, bottoms on bottom of the seats. Now they didn't say anything about taping off the edges, so I guess we're just going to have to be careful. I'm kind of a little bit worried about there being a lot of drippage over the edges, and I'm almost tempted to just tape them off, but I guess we'll give it a shot the way they call it. But yeah, so 6 to 8 hours between coats. So I need to look at the weather and figure out if it's going to be too hot, or maybe I wait a little bit and then do it right before it gets too hot, and then wait till later on in the evening to do another coat. I don't know yet. And plus, they didn't really give a lot of instructions on how much epoxy this should be. So yeah, all right, let me get you set up. We'll get the round over done. I'll get this bottom panel bottom. I keep calling this bottom. This is the front seat here. So we'll get this front seat rounded over, cleaned up on that far edge there, and then we'll see where we're at and go from there. All right, that doesn't look too bad. Should be able to just touch it up a little bit with some hand sanding, and then we'll go ahead and uh, figure out which sides are which. I think this side here on this one is going to be the bottom. So I think this is the side that will glue. We'll take a look at both sides again. I'm pretty sure I've got the other ones figured out for what side I'm going to call the bottom. But anyways, we'll go ahead and pause here and be back in a little bit. All right, then I got everything cleaned up. I've got the different sides selected of which ones I'm going to do. I'm going to call the bottom. It's confusing. So for just putting on the clear epoxy, I've got a 4-inch roller. It's actually 4.5 inch. What I did is I took and this is actually the same Maz epoxy. It's the same brand of the epoxy we're using. So I've got these 9-inch rollers that I just used to saw and cut them in half. Just because I'm frugal, we'll call it frugal. So for this big of an area, I'm hoping the roller works pretty good. But then also I've got the chip brush, and I make sure to make sure there's no loose bristles. So good. So I think we're all set up, ready to go. I just need to mix up some epoxy. So I think I'm going to shoot for. We'll just do 4 ounces of epoxy at a time. And it's a little after 10 a.m. in the morning, so temperature is 82. It's not supposed to get real hot today, partly cloudy, so hopefully around between 4 and 6 this evening I can come out and put a second coat on these parts. I'm going to see how this goes, and if it goes pretty easy and pretty quick and I feel like it, then we'll go ahead and do the glue up on the other 2 parts. I left room for doing those glue ups on those other parts if I feel like that's something we want to get done today. So anyways, let me get some epoxy mixed up here, and then we'll get to work. And I forgot to put gloves on. All right, well, that's first one. Definitely need to use roll and tip for this epoxy. So put down with a roller and then use a brush to tip it. I guess is what it's called. I don't know what it's called. And a darn roller keeps coming off. This may not have been such a good idea. All right, that doesn't look too bad. So got the first coat on. I think this one over on this side here is probably a little bit drier. I wish I had just made one more pump of epoxy. I think we'd have been good. But other than that, I think we went pretty good. So let me go ahead and pause here, and I'll see about if I want to tackle doing the glue up on those other two parts that we need to do. All right, so I got this small doubler set out here. I don't really have enough room to do that big doubler, and this will give me a little bit of a chance to practice a little bit here. So anyways, we got some thickened epoxy here. This is pretty thick. I'm going to go ahead and spread it on the doubler, flip the doubler over, line it up, clamp it down, and Bob's your uncle. Isn't that what they say? All right, so we're supposed to spread this out evenly. And I got way too much epoxy again. Yep, I think I overdid the epoxy again. Next time I might just try using a brush or something. I don't know. This seems like it's just a mess waiting to happen. Alright. I don't think I thought this through all the way. Alright. Let's try not to make a mess here. Alright, now the trick is to get some clamps on here without hosing it up too bad. Like that. Got these blocks of wood underneath here, keep it up off the table, and covered with packing tape so they shouldn't stick. All right, now I got a stir stick that I just squared off the end on. Doesn't say anything about, the manual doesn't say anything about making a cove. Just says to scrape off the excess. So this will take quite a while. Oh, I made a mess over here. All right, that's gonna have to be good enough. Looks like we're still aligned pretty darn close, so good. We'll go ahead and let that sit. We'll let this other stuff sit, and I'll get the bugs off of it's love bug season. So let me show you what flew in and landed on my fresh epoxied front seat here. Yep. Thanks, love bugs. Alrighty then, it's another day out here in the old guy's shed, and so last night I did come back out and put another coat on all three of these pieces, so they came out pretty good. Since they're the bottom, I'm not gonna fret over them. If they were visible, I'd be doing probably some pretty good sanding, because you can see it's still quite a bit of texture there. But since these are on the bottom, they're all sealed up, and they should be fine the way they are. I'm gonna go ahead and put these aside. This doubler here. We'll get this apart. I do need, there's a couple spots with some ooze out that I think I'll just clean up a little bit and get this put to the side. So I'll put all this stuff to a side, and then we've got the other bulkhead that the aft transom needs its doubler put on. So we'll get going on that. And then yesterday afternoon, I also received a delivery of, yep, number 4 port plank is here. You can see it needs some cleanup. So we'll get that cleaned up. I'm pretty impressed. So I ordered it Monday and it arrived yesterday, which was a Thursday. So CLC Boats is on my good side for that, even though it did cost me quite a bit. Real good service. So anyways, yep, so we'll get that going. I'll get that cleaned up and ready to go, so the same time I do the aft transom doubler, I can glue both of them up at the same time. And then I'm hoping today to get started on this this take apart bulkhead. You see there's quite a bit of stuff here. In fact, there's a couple pages of stuff to get to before you get to start stitching the hull together. So yeah, so we gotta take a look at this today. In fact, I might have this all, so when I do an epoxy today, I'll do it all at once, but hopefully we'll see. Anyways, time to get at it, and we'll be back, figure out where we're at. All right, so I've got the doubler here all ready to go. So this side here is the one that will be we'll put epoxy on. We'll flip it over and cleanly put it on here. I can't even say it with a straight face. Oh, I didn't think of something here. I think yeah, so how am I gonna clamp this part down? So I guess I'll be putting something heavy over here. Good thing I just thought of that. I thought I was going to be able to clamp on this end, but nope. So yeah, so I'm going to have to still clamp. I can clamp here, all along here, and then just put something with a little bit of weight here should do it. All right, yep, so I'll have to figure that out. I did get the other puzzle piece here joined, or ready for joining, so I can slap that together as soon as I have some thickened epoxy mixed up, and hopefully I'll have some left. I'm sure I always mix too much, so we should have some left over when we do this to do that. I had thought I would go ahead and do this other bulkhead that needs some work here. This is the take apart bulkhead, where it's got 2 parts to it, and CLC's instructions here are a little bit lacking. I think it's kind of hard to tell, but in this photo down here it gives you a couple hints. But so really I don't know why they don't just give you the instructions to do this. So what I did in this take apart, this is the front section of the take apart bulkhead. The way you can tell is that there's pilot holes on both sides here, and it's also a little smaller than the aft section of this. So anyway, so what I did is found the center line of this bulkhead. So up at the top here, it was 42 inches along here, so 21 inches there. I can't remember what it was down here, but I took a couple measurements and tried to make sure I got this as square and as straight as I could. And then they give you a long piece of, what did they call this? Yeah, so you've been provided with a short length of 3/4 by 3/4 cypress. Cut this into 4 sections and epoxy them into place as seen in the drawings above. Yeah, well, they could at least tell you that, hey, you know, if you measure, and then they say leave a 3/8 inch gap between the cleats in the center line of the bulkhead to make room for the mast support. Okay, well, so it turns out that this was, hold on, I wrote it down over here just so I wouldn't forget. So this one would have been, if you go by the geometry, this would have been 8 5/16. I went ahead and made it 8 1/4, just because I was a little bit worried when I get squeeze out here, and this mass support, there's a mass support that eventually goes in here, so I wanted to make sure I had a little bit of room there to get this in. And that goes in once it's in the boat, from what I can tell. So this side here, or the two center ones, were 8 1/4, and then the two outside ones, and they show to leave a 2-inch gap here on the on this side here, measured from this edge. So that works out to 7 5/8. So that's what I cut the two outside ones to, were for 7 5/8. Now they have these doublers here have holes in them, and what the key is that needs to be centered up on that hole there. That pilot hole is what I think they're aiming to. So what I did is, this is a 3-inch wide piece, so I went ahead and again put a center line in, and then I also transferred it at both at the bottom and the top. So now when it's time to put this in, I can come ahead and we can line up this side here, and then this end here, and hopefully be pretty darn close. And then we'll have to clamp this on. So then I'll need to do both sides, and then I'll come back and do these cleats up here. Now the biggest key, I think, is to make sure that we've got a flat surface there. So I've got this was the leftover chunk of cypress, and I'm going to use it to make sure I've got a flush here, because the seat is actually going to sit along this edge here. So I'm not going to try to do that glue up at the same time I do this. I'm just going to go ahead and do this, get this out of the way, and then regroup and make sure I've got everything figured out for this, because this is a little bit more complicated, and I think this is a little bit more critical, to make sure we get the everything right, because we drill holes through here, you mount a bolt in here, covered it with epoxy, and then bolt the whole thing together. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that glue up there first, along with see if we can get this port number 4 done, and then we'll come back to this maybe even tomorrow before I get to this. The other thing was, so I was looking, I started cleaning up the transom a little bit, and I was like, well, heck, there's got to be something more. So this transom, I started cleaning up here. So I was like, well, there's got to be more. What happens, when does this get epoxied? When does this get glued in? Well, I see where it gets glued in, and there's a fillet that runs along this outside edge along here, but they don't ever show when this gets epoxied or when this gets anything else done to it. So I'm going to go ahead and since once we get this stuff done, I'm going to take both this bow transom and the aft transom, once I get the doubler on there, and I'm going to clean these up real well, and probably use some more epoxy, especially along these top edges, to make sure that this top edge is all smooth. And I think I'm even going to go ahead and give it a coat of epoxy, maybe even 2. It doesn't ever show this getting fiberglassed, which kind of makes sense, I guess, but I am going to coat at least this side with epoxy. I think since this is the inside, and then the outside, it does show getting coated with epoxy. But for both of these, maybe I won't do it right yet, but I'm going to clean it up and make sure that all of the sides are all cleaned up nice, and the handle here is all cleaned up, and maybe even a coat of epoxy on the sides and the handle, before I get too much further. So all right, so anyways, let me get set up, and we'll get go ahead and get this glue up done, and then we'll get that done. I think that'll be the end of this episode. We'll see. Anyways, I'll pause here. We'll get set up, do the glue up, and be back. All right, here we go. I think this is still too thin. I never get this right. I'll build the whole boat before I get this epoxy stuff figured out, I think. And let's make a mess. And I didn't make enough. I don't think I did. Alright, not sure if I got enough to do the puzzle joint. I think I'll probably make up another batch to do the puzzle joint. Alright. Just make sure I don't screw this up too bad. This isn't cooperating. It's not staying where I want it to. Keeps moving. Lots of squeeze out, that's for sure. I'm going to do a round of squeeze out here before I put weight on it. Yeah, it's going to need quite a bit of cleanup anyway, so I'm just going to put some weight on there. Alrighty then, today's Friday the 7th of April, so we'll go ahead and end up the video here. I'll get this one edited and uploaded for Saturday 5 p.m. release. Still have quite a bit to do before we even start putting the boat together. We've got to clean up both the bow and the rear, the aft transom, and then we still need to work on the take apart bulkhead. Got quite a bit of work there. I'll probably have to do quite a bit of cleanup on number 4 port plank, and then we'll see what else we get into before we start putting the boat together. Maybe might be as early as next week we start putting start stitching up the boat, but we'll have to see about that. Anyways, wanted to say thanks for watching, thanks for your support. Make sure you're hitting that like button. Please leave me any comments, questions, suggestions down below. Please tell your friends about me, and please subscribe. Everyone, take care and be good.